I do believe it is that time of the month again. WebBot report summary for August 2016. I received this about 2 days ago, roughly. Maybe 3 or 4 days ago, actually. Just busy doing other stuff, because I have to read the whole report, take notes as I'm reading the report, copy and paste stuff, It takes me a while. In case you're wondering, it does take me a while it takes me a lot longer to read the whole report because I'm reading the whole report, summarizing it, keeping what I want to keep to talk about, and then I got to come out here and read what I already wrote down to you guys. So, my usual precursor speech. I just jump from section to section, paragraph to different paragraphs, with no rhyme or reason. It's a summary, not in any specific order. If you want the full thing, which I will tell you for $15, is totally worth it. Because even though it's not always right, the many times it is right, I find that those things are just for $15. I get to know that a bunch of what I'm about to talk about, there's a good chance of more of it taking place than not taking place. More of it will come true than won't come true. That's the type of record the WebBot has. Not always right, though. But it's better than chance, which means it's more right than it's not. The timing may be off. That happens all the time. So I'm just going to get right into this one. He mentions this is kind of a new WebBot format, new layout, the way he's doing things in the WebBot. And he's titling this one, Your World, or at least this part anyways, Your World Changes. The winds meme is going both in supporting sets for new winds phenomena, but also now gaining support from the sets involved in the popcorn rains. These popcorn storms, violent brief thunderstorms, are growing as a forecast occurrence to appear over these next few months. The data sets are showing that the popcorn storms will be causing whole continents, including North America, will be crossing whole continents, including North America, with such speed that the water load within the storm only grows as it crosses land and is then released at the next shore. These popcorn, so to give you an example, something develops on the west coast of America, huge giant thing, moves across center of America, central, then off to the east coast, and by the time it gets to the east coast, it's time to unload, or vice versa. And when it unloads, record-breaking drop. We've already seen record-breaking raindrop. People died in these flash floods just recently, all of which has been predicted by the WebBot. Others, wait a minute, let me just go back where I was. With such speed that the water load within the storm only grows as it crosses land and is then released at the next shore. These popcorn storms are going to be both numerous to the point of eliciting discussion as well as being violent to the point of creating flash floods and fires via lightning strikes. Which, by the way, let me stop because I forgot to tell you, there's always new people joining my channel. WebBot, Cliff High, where do I get this thing? How do I read it? www.halfpasthuman.com. 15 buckaroos you can get these. These things used to be hundreds of dollars years ago, and I didn't buy them. I only bought one that was really expensive. And they were a lot more pages than this, by the way. He used to do a huge far out view into the future. So for 15 freaking dollars, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. If you support people, for example, you support me, you're watching my videos, you get something out of it, whether it's entertainment or knowledge or information, whatever it is, you enjoy it. So, if you can give me a thumbs up, which you guys do in my comments all the time, that tells me you're giving me, you're giving old Jason 4 a thumbs up. So if you want to give someone else a thumbs up, such as someone who deserves it, another person like me, Cliff High, you can do so by sending him $15 and buying his reports once a month. You're supporting a patriot. You're supporting a good guy. Fantastic guy. So I have to get that out of the way because it's true. I've become friends with him over the past couple of years. Not just a few emails back and forth. I really like that guy. So again, you want to help support someone? You want to throw your money away on other nonsense and junk? Man, give the guy a couple bucks. Anyways, the next part of this. I don't know why I scrolled down so far. Other sets and supporting positions for rains are again pointing to the ringing of the clouds into a deluge, which is indicated to cause several miles of train tracks and supporting infrastructure to be washed away from a hillside and end up in another country near the coast. These rains destroy trains data sets are growing as though a major and wide meme is developing. The rains destroy sets have the largest levels of growth, with trains being but one, albeit an eye-catching one, of many within the sets of destruction. There are even sets that are growing with aspect/attribute sets for boats that will be sunk by rains. Other areas to receive these destroying rains include sports stadiums and port buildings, maybe airports. Many other buildings and structures are described as being flooded out or washed away. These destroying rains are slightly different from the lakes in the atmosphere, in that the rains are described as being wind-driven and cumulative over time, in the sense of rain clouds keep coming, bringing more rains, in a flowing river in the atmosphere. So whereas previous ALTA reports had lakes in the atmosphere, which would dump out their volume in short periods, these new destroying rains are as though the rivers in the atmosphere have a specific point at which they are dumping their volume, so the effects will be as though a river suddenly appeared and swept everything away, except from above. Most of the geographic associations for these data sets have northern hemisphere place names. However, a significant number of those are also shared south of the equator. There are new Earth change sets that are forecasting a brief and way early dip straight into winter, as snow and freezing temperatures will be the headlines for many places across the northern hemisphere in September this year. Assuming it gets it right? We'll see. Your global population changes is the next title of this particular section. It's a depression out there with a big D, and the data sets are saying that real soon, as in this year, pretty much anywhere in the whole of the Western dollar-denominated world, the D word will be entering your vocabulary and that of your friends. Bear in mind, there's a lot of energy in the dollar, economic, political, and social, as well as personal. It will take a long time for the dollar to die. Some clarity is forming up in the older, longer-term data sets, now shifted into shorter-term and immediacy data set that describes a sari-wearing woman, S-A-R-I, sari-wearing woman, who will be rising to global prominence by the virtues. These virtues are described as upsetting and overturning and upending and emptying the banksters at a global level. This sari-wearing woman is also described as smart, as in perhaps one of the top thinkers on the planet, who is basically only locally well known until these virtues begin to propel her to new social heights. These virtues are also shown as doing the uplifting of her status against her wishes. Other sets describe her as ruthless in her defense of her principles. In some of the supporting sets, we find aspect/attribute sets that suggest she is an enlightened being and has reportedly been tested by death and challenges. Data sets growing in supporting positions to surprise encounter are filling with this is probably another paragraph, by the way. Data sets growing in supporting positions to surprise encounter are filling with sub-sea survey and oceanographic representation and analysis and exposure. All of these are focusing on the surprise encounter between global pop and the subset inhabitants. While there are huge levels of cross-links over to Space Goats Farts entity, which is the outer space, weird stuff, not sure what it is stuff, entity, nickname, Space Goats Farts, where termination is all over the place from unknown to officially denied to what the F. The primary supporting crosslinks are more sobering and are internal to global pop or over to the powers that be entity. Again, we see that there are links between the results of the subsea survey and the Caribbean mummy shipwreck discovery, which hasn't happened yet, but these new surprise encounter sets are appearing in other areas of ocean activities that affect global pop. The data sets are suggesting that the results of the oceanographic survey will be very revealing and will cause a viral discussion about what is going on down there, meaning subsea. And my own personal note about the thing below that I'm about to read you, I think the paragraph below could be tied to the Olympics, maybe, and the terrible water there in Brazil. This sounds like a potential hazard over there, but not necessarily, and he's not saying that it is. We still have growing forecasts for a very dramatic cruise ship rescue involving lots of smoke, wailing people, helicopters, heaving waters, and much more drama. These rescue forecasts for this cruise ship are now starting to include some of the details about rampaging disease and disabled crew members and overflowing septic systems and polluted water and failed systems on the boat, and many other such phrases indicating that the only part of this memory fondly considered will be having survived the trip. The way the data sets are describing this language, the underlying event should be well reported in real time with a lot of coverage. Next paragraph. There are new areas in our model space that are forecasting the rise of very troubling food crop woes. These are, at this point, showing up for the southern hemisphere more so than the northern. The manifestation of these food crop problems is going to be first written about as crop failures of one kind or another, as there are various different species involved, but note that in all cases the causes cited will be wrong. Next paragraph. Over the course of the next few months, the data is suggesting that a general trend toward increasing legal contention will emerge. This is a natural part of the process of humanity at the moment, as may be expected with all the contention in the world. However, the data sets are forecasting that a deliberate effort in the legal area is going to manifest between July 31st and October 8th that will reorient the world. This seemingly does not relate to politics, though it will influence that area. Nor is it directly related to currencies and money, but is showing as having a huge impact on paper debt and paper debt derivatives by the time around October 8th is passed. The words associated with this deliberate effort in lawsuit is transformational. The data is describing a situation in which upending and reseeding takes place at a level that will be heard about, read, understood, become aware of by over half of humans on the planet. Global Pop continues to get new data sets in support of the small nation that goes to monetize gold. It's another paragraph. And receive support from the global smuggling community. This small nation and its financial problems that result in a gold taken as money over currencies position is indicated to be globally impacting on the financial press as well as the financial world. Australia Pop, little short thing here for you guys. Problems in the housing business will be spreading from house Problems in the housing business will be spreading from housing out to construction in some rather dramatic forms, as several stories are being forecast to come out of Australian media that will present construction to politics corruption links. This is indicated to be a scandal that will spread around Australia like mold on a crisp. The data sets are showing that corrupt and recently re-elected politicians will be flayed alive for some of the egregious profits that they were making under the covers as backroom owners of many rental properties. Other issues include bad foods showing up not as a recall, at least not according to the data, but rather as both a scandal and a national joke. In the scandal part, the data shows that bad food will have been sold quite a while ago, maybe several years, and never reported, even though the guys selling it apparently knew it was bad or tainted at the time. China Pop. Our data is showing that the Spratly Islands are going to emerge as being, from China Pop's perspective, all about energy. First, the data is suggesting that China Pop is going to build giant, absolutely huge, deep-sea temperature conversion units there for production of cheap-ish electricity for the Southeast Asia region. While second, the data shows that a recent and still secret, don't tell anyone, find of subsea rare earths is going to be mined for use in China Pop's energy industry. New data sets for China Pop are forecasting on the Chinese economic expansion efforts that are going on internally in China Pop. As a part of these efforts, the data is forecasting that the central authorities will be both promoting Bitcoin as well as announcing their own blockchain efforts for improved government efficiency. However, note that the idea is to use the public ledger approach to curtail internal government paper fraud. China Pop sets are also forecasting that central authorities will be deliberately leaking word of a group of meetings or conferences in which designs for a 5-year transition into a e-gold yuan, or as Cliff High pronounces it, yuan currency, are being put forward. Europe Pop. The continuing, and there's a bit more in Europe, but I'm cutting these way short. Again, if you want to know everything, get the report yourself. The continuing saga of the War for Europe population is showing as becoming increasingly violent in August and onward through fall Northern Hemisphere. The data sets would have the first of the successful pushback from the Core Peoples Initiative starting to alter into an army by early November 2016, with the establishing of the command structures locally and regionally, and the introduction of the Rapid Deployment Forces. Street War goes mobile, apparently. The data would have the EU as an experiment really start breaking up in early fall of this year, as pensions for the EU bureaucracy are indicated to take a huge hit that forces a radical reappraisal by all concerned within the EU bosses class. These pension shocks are themselves supported by bad money failing new sets that are showing that the EU begins a rapid fall as both the European Pop and the USA Pop come under full-on assault at the mental energy level by the developing circumstances of late July and early August. Deutsche Pop. As model space has progressed through August, the picture intensifies for a brilliant flash. Additional note, flash crash maybe? Question mark. The rest of the month settles into a daily descent that is bringing all parties into a large meeting at the end of the month and ahead of perceived fiscal collapse. These sets are referring to the controllers and fiscal technicians. The rest of Deutsche Pop is apparently not invited to the meeting. However, according to the data sets, this is not going to stop the determined population from imposing its thoughts or will on the proceedings. The data sets are describing massive collections of people gathering for this meeting. The media will label it as a protest, but here in the Alta reports or Webbot reports, the data is describing it as a revolution in the Congress of Affected Peoples. The data sets are not providing any protest-like language in the descriptors. Rather, it seems to be an evolution in the politics of the street. Next one, Turkey Pop, as in the country. The data sets are presenting a picture of Turkey Pop in which the explosion that should not have gone off does so, and the resulting damage is horrific. There are reasons to suspect that the explosion will be massive, but so far nothing to suggest a nuclear explosion above ground. There is language about some very odd happenings underground related to the explosion word, and it could be interpreted that a nuclear explosion takes place accidentally in underground. However, there are alternate interpretations for the underground word sets in this supporting chain that do not involve nuclear material. That said, we still have a large immediacy data build up for the explosion in Turkey Pop as being regretted and accidental and bringing an apology. The data is seemingly pointing toward a break-up politically of Turkey following the unwanted accidental explosion. The new supporting sets are suggesting that Turkey is going to fall into fractional fighting, as the central authorities are described as self-immolating and self-destroying. Now on to what most of you are probably here for, USA Pop. Start of the death by starvation of the two faces of the political system here in the U.S. The data growth continues for attrition and starvation of funds and loss of donors and lies for fundraising exposed. Boy, have we! I think we already said we've seen enough of that in the last few days. And dollar dying causes systemic fiscal diseases, and other language going to the idea that the fiat currency regime is ending and is taking out or removing the supports it had for the political machinery. The data appears to be forecasting that the rigid control over the dollar-based debt economy in the USA POP is going to suffer a breakdown, as many of the bankrupt companies will actually fail without the banks having to initiate the process. The data is forecasting that cities, as in municipalities, will be the proximate cause or causes for the failures, as many contracts are going to go into arrears. These defaulted contracts are not limited to cities, by the way. Next paragraph. The mind shift within the large part of the sleeping part of the USA POP is indicated to be speeding up, but with nonetheless taking months to even scratch the surface of Sleeple Pop due to its huge size and the depth of its slumber. However, that said, the impacts are showing as being both strong and quick or rapid in terms of the visible manifestation of the awakening process. The impacts are described as including pressure on the retail gold, silver, Bitcoin, and mining shares markets, along with creating a flood of orders sometime in early 2017 for long store foods, as in foods that last long, dehydrated foods, freeze-dried foods, like prepper food stuff, and all forms of emergency or preparedness goods. Next one. I actually put this whole one in bold because this was very interesting to me, and I want to make it, stand out. Model Space has no good data for USA POP for the rest of this year. And again, I had to cut these way back. I will urge you to get these reports yourself in full. The data shows that there will be a near constant stream of quote-unquote attacks by the powers that be on the population by way of lone shooters or terrorists or the next bad guy to be focused upon by mainstream propaganda press as we go forward. And yes, this is me speaking. Yes, that includes real events and hoax events. The webbot doesn't know which one's which. It just knows what the news is going to be about, essentially. The social pressures are described as increasing along with the fragility of the political economic system. This includes the election this year in USA POP. The data sets are describing this election cycle as being the most deadly ever, with a number of shootings and attacks that result in fatalities as the tensions build. And that's it for that paragraph. Other more organic causes for the bad behavior of the population includes the massive layoffs, business crash that grows across late summer and into fall. These further layoffs and the coincident decline of the American tech flush finally kills off the hotspots in California and along the East Coast insofar as the jobs and real estate markets. The data is describing a situation in which there is a sudden or overnight feeling to the breaking of the real estate prices as these high-end lifestyle centers also take a financial hit. The data shows that bad behavior increases rapidly in an organic fashion. This is also showing as being used by the powers that be to redirect emotional energies into other areas of their choosing. Next paragraph. As part of our real estate sets, we have some new areas that are forecasting that apps will be set up from the major listing agencies, as far as real estate goes, to instantly alert buyers to price changes. As the price is dropping so rapidly, it will be difficult for both sellers and buyers to track the exchange value of real estate. These sets are indicating that apps will be providing the price discovery for real estate by commodities in various areas where currencies are not circulating widely enough to warrant a dollar or other currency price. So the apps will provide the universal constants of Bitcoin, gold, and silver. Also, please note that within these sets, there are groups that continue to reinforce the idea of silver more valuable than gold. Does that mean on a monetary level? Not necessarily. Maybe there's some new interesting uses for silver and it becomes more valuable for that respect than gold. In either case, both gold and silver have been in the Webbot reports for years, and they're going to go up very, very, very high in price. And finally, last piece here, markets entity. Another large one I had to cut down, as expected. I always do. Temporally coincident. And by the way, there was another one, the Space Goats Farts entity. That's the one that there's just, the weird out there stuff. I completely omitted that one out of this report. Again, I'm going to be running out of time. I spend 30 minutes doing these, and that's all I usually do. Again, Cliff High has asked me to do that, and I will respect that. Markets, temporally coincident with the European street wars. The data shows that Bitcoin is going to breach the barrier and take out $688. This is also being described as temporally coincident with the first of the previously forecast air gaps in the price of silver. These air gaps are indicated to be large enough to cause comments in the mainstream propaganda press, and these discussions are showing as being prompts to bank runs in Europe. These bank runs are also showing as affecting vaults of all kinds as the population becomes nervous about the certainty of institutions. The bank run is also showing as impacting gold and silver sales as the population is indicated to take money from banks and put into precious metals. In spite of the many voices, minions, officialdom, powers that be, proclaiming that this or that is the cause of the sudden crisis, crash, collapse, there are clear sets going to the idea that the global population will not be buying the excuses from the minions and politicians. The data sets are forecasting that the gambling experience of the millions of private traders across the planet is going to be so violent, an expression, as to prompt actual heart attacks. Stated another way, the sudden rush into the crisis period, collapsing fiscal structures, causes day traders and pensioners to be both wiped out as well as shocked nearly to death. One of the new words that appears in many of the subsets of the markets entity is reversal. This word is within many of the subsets that are connected to the trading subsets of the markets. The appearance of the reversal word is going to the idea of sudden reversal of trends within paper debt markets. There are many new subsets for giant shifts in the values relative of the fiat currencies that will be participating within the trading markets. These fiat breaks are showing as causing wild swings in the real prices for energy and nearly everything else as the markets become unhinged at the exchange level. These new sets are subsets for a growing chain that has fiat currencies being near to reaching their limits in continuing confidence. The data sets are forecasting that the runs on banks in the Europe pop are but the first and are the spark that will set off a global Western brush fire, if you will. A small side note on the talent part of the breed, this is another paragraph, a small side note on the talent part of the bleed out of what used to be called a brain drain in the last century. In our data sets, we have a group of foreign scientists working in China Pop with China Pop engineers who are going to succeed, according to the data sets, in producing a device, this is what I'm thinking, new electrics, that will propel technology along a huge new direction. However interesting this new direction may be, the point of discussing it here is that this new technology is going to require silver in a way that no other metal will suffice. Temporally near to the hype about this new tech appearing, we have data sets indicating that silver starts to go parabolic in its relationship to gold, thus heading for better than parity. There are some indications that this new technology is associated with our previously forecast wireless telepathy. In related areas of the markets entity, we have a large amount of new data that is forecasting that the rapid and somewhat unexpected rise in silver prices in US dollars over the month of August will be causing a number of companies to go out of business as their short positions in the silver markets go uncovered. This is showing as causing a chain of defaults that is going to cascade upward into the large players in the commodities markets. This defaulting pressure is going to force the banks, especially the bullion banks, to frantically try to obtain coverage for their sinking positions. The data sets are forecasting that there will be no silver or gold to purchase to make good the systemic problems, and that the governments of the planet are going to be deeply involved in the failing silver shorts positions by mid-September 2016 at an official and public level. Cliff High's website is www.halfpasthuman.com. If you would like to buy the full web report, have at it. Take care.